Welcome back to the Morning Blend. Today, caring for a spouse with Alzheimer's from a guy who's been there. Former Governor Marty Schreiber tells us what he wishes he had done differently, hoping you can learn from his experience. I'm super excited to welcome him back to the Morning Blend. Hi, Marty.
Well, good morning, Molly, and I want to begin by making an announcement. And I want to announce that I will not be a candidate for president of the United States.
I wasn't quite sure what announcement you were going to make, but I'm glad that you cleared that up. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very disappointed to hear that.
Well, I can already hear this weeping and gnashing of teeth. I can already hear that. And then I also want to take a moment to give a shout out to Marilyn Krause. She was the one that introduced us, you and Tiffany and me together. And I know that she does just an awful lot of work with the press. And so I wanted to acknowledge what she has done to help people learn, cope, and survive this whole business of Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned her, Marty, because Marilyn is the one who connected us, and she's continued to help us come up with ideas and some talking points so that you can share your message. Because since your wife's diagnosis, you've worked tirelessly on behalf of caregivers, which I really appreciate. And you have so many insights. And today I kind of wanted to talk about the concept of if you'd only known then, starting with what are some things that you would do differently? Of course, hindsight is always 20/20. What are things you would do differently if you knew then what you know now?
I want to begin by talking mindset. And in Indian lore, there was this Indian chief blind with the wisdom of Solomon. And one day, two braves got together and they figured they're going to trick this Indian chief, and they're going to show the fact that this Indian chief is blind, that he is not so wise. So one brave said to the other, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold a sparrow in my hand, and I'm going to ask the Indian chief, is the sparrow dead or alive? And if the Indian chief said that the sparrow is dead, I'm going to open up my hand and let it fly away. And if the Indian chief said that the sparrow is alive, I'm going to close my hand, crush the sparrow, and it will be dead. Well, they go before the Indian chief, and they said, Indian chief, I have a sparrow in my hand. Is the sparrow dead or alive? And the Indian chief said, the sparrow is as you choose it to be. And so what I wish I would have done was have a better mindset. Along the way, I learned, rather than worrying about the storm to pass, to try and learn how to dance in the rain. Now, these are cliches, but they all boil down to the fact that there are things that we can control, and we've got to begin to prepare as best we can. Also, under the heading, if Alzheimer's is bad, ignorance of the disease is worse. And so when that diagnosis first comes down, to understand that it is going to be a tough journey, but then to also understand that you have to try and live your best life possible, and also so your loved one can live her best life possible. And you can do that by better understanding the disease. One of the things that I was ready to go to print with my book, My Two Elaines, and lo and behold, I found a series of notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping maybe 3 weeks before I went to press. And by the grace of God, I found them. And until I read those notes, I never understood the courage that it takes for someone diagnosed with Alzheimer's to continue. But never did I understand how important that I was as a caregiver in what she was about as far as her life is concerned. So caregivers, you have to take care of yourself. Caregivers, you have to understand that you owe it to your loved one to make sure that you get enough exercise, to make sure that you keep your mind working, to make sure that you have the proper diet, because this disease is tough enough. But if a caregiver does not take care of himself or herself, they're going to be less capable of helping their loved one.
That's such a great point, Marty. I loved looking at that picture of Elaine when she was younger with your grandchildren. And I think it must be particularly devastating to be diagnosed like her about 15 years ago with early onset Alzheimer's, because you still have so much living left to do. And I wonder, as you found those notes and some of the things that she said, could you give us just a few things that were particularly poignant to you that she said that you think could be meaningful to other people who are dealing with a loved one who has Alzheimer's?
Well, to give a picture sort of the emotions and the ups and downs, very early in her diagnosis, Elaine wrote a letter to what she called to her dear loved ones. And I'll just read this portion. She said, she writes, "It wasn't until a few weeks ago that I really had to say, yes, I do have Alzheimer's. I had read of signs that indicate Alzheimer's, like getting overly upset for no reason and having trouble with names and directions. But I still didn't think it was a problem for me. But in hindsight, for too long, I've been getting lost driving, having trouble keeping days straight, and difficulties with names and schedules. Still, I still felt I could handle it. It won't get worse. But this morning, I started reading about the mid-stage of Alzheimer's in hopes of preparing myself better, and realized I am not very far away. That is most scary, but I have to accept it." Then she also wrote a very simple note at a time to me. She said, "I would be so lost without you. So please continue to take good care of yourself for me as well as for you." There again, underscoring how much our loved one depends upon us, because we are all they have.
And I know
She writes, yes.
I know she took such good care of you too, in all your campaigns and through different elections, wins and losses. As we look at these pictures, thank you so much, Marty. We ran out of time, but I want to make sure that people know how to get your book, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Molly. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Such great information. To get a copy of his book, go to the website my2elaines.com. We've also provided links to the Alzheimer's Association as well as the Wisconsin's Aging and Disability Resource Centers on our website, themorningblend.com.